Next, I'm going to talk about what we can expect to see this coming season in 2020. Generally, we've had really poor ocean and freshwater conditions over the past 5 years, in which the fish returning this year have experienced. From 2013 to 2016, we had a really warm North Pacific, nicknamed the Blob. That kind of went away in 2017. Things cooled down, but the ocean warmed up again in the fall of 2018, and again it's still warm out there in 2019 into 2020. So really warm ocean conditions, and what that means is less food for our salmon. Basically, when you have warm water, you have smaller species of zooplankton, these little shrimp-like creatures, which have less fat in them. When you have colder ocean conditions, you have larger species with more fat in them. And that's really what drives the whole food chain. It feeds salmon and also the fish that salmon eat. Warm water means less food, and also we've been seeing smaller fish come back. Smaller at age, size of fish, because there's just not as much food and nutrients out there for them in recent years. And this all is really exacerbated by massive numbers of hatchery releases. About 5 billion young salmon are put into the North Pacific each year from hatcheries around the North Pacific, from Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, Alaska, Japan, Russia, and Korea. And about 40% of the salmon in the ocean are now coming from these hatcheries. And so the hatchery fish are competing with our wild fish for the limited amount of food that's out there, and this is making the problems worse for our wild salmon. The ocean conditions have been poor, but also the freshwater conditions in 2015, 2016, 2018 have been really warm, lots of droughts, low snowpack, earlier spring flooding, and that means that our fish that we will be returning in 2020, this coming season, experience those poor conditions not only in the ocean but also in fresh water. We can expect generally poor returns of salmon this coming season. That's a generalization. We might see some good numbers in different places, so fingers crossed. DFO has some forecasts, but there's a lot of uncertainty with these forecasts. They do a range, and they pick a point estimate, and that's what I'm going to be talking about, the midpoint in the range of the forecast that DFO is expecting for this coming season. And so for Sockeye, Department of Fisheries and Oceans is predicting about 875,000 sockeye coming back to the Skeena, and the long-term average is more around 2.5 million, so quite low. The NAS, they're predicting 386,000 sockeye. The long-term average is about 600,000 or 700,000, so substantially below the long-term average. Chinook, we can expect similar to what we saw last year, so generally low returns to the north and central coast, potentially around 30,000 Chinook to the Skeena, which is low. Coho, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is expecting generally low returns, although there might be some bright spots there, hopefully. For pink salmon, we're expecting low to average returns in the north and central coast. And in Alaska, they do juvenile surveys in Southeast Alaska, and they're expecting low returns in Southeast Alaska as well. For chum salmon, generally we're expecting low returns. Chum have been depressed for a long time on parts of the north coast, and we expect low returns for 2020. For steelhead, they don't make forecast predictions for steelhead, so we don't know. Generally, they're experiencing the same conditions or similar conditions to the salmon, so it's hard to know. They could be low as well. So in terms of management for this coming season, generally, Department of Fisheries and Oceans has stated that we will have similar management actions as we saw last year. So what this means is reductions to the North Coast Chinook troll fisheries, some reduction in saltwater fisheries potentially, and some restrictions in Skeena and Nass in-river sport fisheries. For sockeye, it is unlikely that we will have commercial fisheries at the mouth of the Skeena this year. There could very well be some commercial fisheries in the Nass for sockeye. And it is unlikely that there will be sport fisheries for sockeye this coming season in the Skeena. For coho, DFO is considering some reductions over last year, but we don't have the details for that yet. And for pink salmon, it is unlikely there will be very many opportunities for commercial pink salmon fisheries this coming year. So overall, generally a low returns expected, although we might be surprised. It's really hard to forecast these things now because there's so much variability in the ocean and in fresh water. And so we're going to hope for the best and try to be more adaptable in season to see what's coming back and then shape the fisheries around the actual returns. For more information, I'm also going to put up a link to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Environmental Conditions presentation. It's a great way to get more information on what's going on with our salmon. And also, if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact us at skeenawild.org, and we'll try to answer your questions the best we can.